I just speak my peace, keep my peace.
What's good, y'all? Welcome to another episode of the Speak on Peace podcast. As always, I'm your gracious host, Greg Lacey. Like we always do about this time, I hope this episode reads you all in good health, good wealth, and that you are all taking care of yourself and your loved ones, because that is what is important. Before we jump into everything, I want to start this episode off with two disclaimers. Yes, two. The first being, this is a storytelling episode, so y'all buckle in, y'all brace in. It's going to be very lengthy. Pause. I intended on coming to this episode and saying that, I wanted this to be short, whatever the case may be. But if you are an avid listener of the Speak on Peace podcast, whenever I say we're going to make this short, it's usually when we get into like the 45 to 50 minute mark of these episodes. So I'm just giving y'all a forewarning. This is going to be a long episode. I got some storytelling to do. Two, with that being said, the majority of the stories I tell on this podcast, the majority of the testimonies I share on this podcast, I didn't been through it, experienced it, grown through it, and is kind of over it. So I want y'all to understand that just in terms of the stories I tell, and specifically the story I'm going to tell in this podcast episode, because I'm recording it right now because I want the feelings and emotions to be fresh. Like I could have went through it, grown through it, experienced it, and then came back months later and recorded it. But I want this to be fresh, so I'm recording it now. However, with that being said, at the moment of me recording this episode, I have no idea when I'm coming back with season 8. So I don't know the time span in between me recording this episode and it being released. I don't know if this episode is going to be the first episode of season 8. I don't know if this episode is going to be the last episode or the middle of season 8. Whatever the case may be, I know that season 8 is probably not coming for a good 3 or 4 months at the very least. So understand that this episode is being recorded at least 4 months ahead of y'all hearing it. It could be 5 or 6 months. It could be a year ahead of y'all hearing it. But it's just important for y'all to know that, because I don't want y'all reaching out to me and, thinking that I'm currently going through it or whatever the case may be. Is like I'm recording now because the feelings are fresh and I wanted it to be raw. But by the time y'all hear this, I didn't been through it and learned from it and grown through it. It's not a very serious, not a very serious topic. But one thing about this podcast and this platform that I have, I like to share my account to my testimonies with things that I go through, because you never know when you tell your story who they might inspire to either share their story or who they may inspire to get through whatever they're going through. So I always like to be very candid in those situations, because again, you never know. Like I know there's a lot of people that I hear certain stories or certain testimonies that inspire me. And I think that is the power in testimonies. As I said previously in another episode, that when you share your testimony, you think that you're just sharing it because you want to get something off your chest, but you sharing that and you inspiring somebody to either tell their story, or you inspiring somebody to realize that oh, it's not bad. This situation and what I'm, currently experiencing is not as bad as I think it is, because somebody else has been through it or somebody has been through worse, wherever the case may be. So I think that is very important in sharing testimonies. With that being said, I'm going to move again, y'all. This is the last episode in this beautiful blue room, because I am moving. I'm actually moving the day after I record this episode, to put things into perspective, which is funny because the second half of season 7 has been filmed in this room as part of me making another move. So it's like I made one big move and now I'm making another big move. I can share where I moved to now because I'm moving from here, but I ended up moving to Charlotte. I moved to Charlotte, and that is where the second half of season 7 has been filmed. And I want to give y'all the story into why I'm moving again, but it's going to take a lot for us to get there. As I said, this is a storytelling episode, so it's going to be a lot of details. But in order for me to get to where I'm going, I got to go way back in time. I got to go back 3 years. I got to go back 3 years. No, 2 years. I got to go back 2 years to get to where I'm going. Yeah, that's where I'm going to start, 2 years. That's a good starting point. So for those of you who don't know, I was in a relationship at that time. The reason why I bring up this relationship, because I previously said in another episode as well that, in the relationship I was in during that time, I felt like I I needed flexibility in my life to be there for the person I was dating. Not that it was required or demanded of me, but just me being able to assess certain situations. I can know when I'm needed, and I can know what I can offer in certain situations. And in that situation, flexibility was needed, like in terms of my scheduling, in terms of my free time, and just in terms of just like what I was able to do for my partner. The reason why I bring this up is because when I first brought that up in terms of the flexibility, that tied into a portion of my life in terms of my career growth. I remember being in 2023, being in a point in my career to where I know I was ready for a promotion, but I was on a team where I was comfortable and it allowed a lot of flexibility. Like I have been working on that team for about up to that point 4 years now. And while everybody else had, reverted back to a hybrid work schedule a year or two prior, in 2023, I was still working from home. So I have been working from home for 3 years. I started going into the office, I want to say the end of 2020, maybe the end of 2023, beginning of 2024. Actually, it was beginning of 2024 because that's when I joined my new team. But I had been working from home and I understood that I was ready for promotion. I couldn't get promoted on my team because the spot that I would get promoted to was already filled. And so I had to just seek out where else I would go, whether that was leaving my company or whether that was getting promoted to another team on my company. So I ended up putting that off at the time because I was comfortable where I was at. I was comfortable in terms of me being able to work from home. I was not willing to give that up personally. Like I just enjoyed, to this day, I still enjoy work from home. I prefer work from home over a hybrid or even working 100% in the office. Work from home is my sweet spot. So I had to give that up if I was going to be leaving. And so with that mindset, I was like, all right, I'm going to sit in this for a little bit longer just to figure out where I'm going to go next, not make any rational decisions. Around the same time, and this is around summer 2023. So for those of you who haven't listened to the podcast before, I've told this story before. At the end of 2022, I had interviewed for a company that does the media for my dream brand, the brand that I want to work on, the brand that I guess I gotta go back any further for those of you who don't know what I do. I work in media. I do strategy planning in media. In layman's terms, I work for an agency side in media. Let's say, this agency name is Greg. Greg is one of the biggest agencies in the world, and it houses, all these different brands. The majority of the biggest brands in the world, they don't do a lot of the media and advertising marketing themselves. They outsource it to other companies that have been running for hundreds of years or 100 years and nearly 100 years because they have been trying and proven in terms of like getting your return on investment, in terms of, getting people, getting your dollars worth in terms of marketing and things like that. So what big companies would do, let's say I got this shirt from Zara. Zara is going to reach out to Greg Agency. So now Greg Agency handles all the media for Zara. Samsung. Samsung is going to reach out to Greg Agency. Where's this microphone? Newer. Newer is going to reach out to Greg Agency. And so now Greg Agency has those 3 brands along with 20, 30 other brands under their umbrella. And they do all the media for Greg. I mean, they do all the media, Greg does the media for all these brands. All these brands live under one house, and that's Greg. And so I work for an agency that houses multiple media channels. And so at the end of 2022, I was interviewing for a job for an agency that housed my dream brand. Went through 4 or 5 rounds of interviews. I didn't end up getting that. And so now we're in 2023. I'm in a position I'm in. And then by the summertime, I'm realizing that I'm ready for a promotion. But because of the sweet spot that I'm in, I'm content where I'm at. I don't necessarily want to leave my team. Around the same time, summer 2023, there was this opportunity that came up because, again, what happens in media as well is that they win brands. Like, brands don't stay with agencies for their entire time. They may, sign a contract for 5 years, and at the end of the 5 years, that agency can bid to keep the company, and then other agencies can also be in a pitch to get that company. And so summer 2023, my agency had won a brand that was very similar to my dream brand. Just it's in the same field or does the same thing. And so when this opportunity came up, this is around the same time to where I'm like, oh, I'm ready for promotion. I'm ready to leave. They had one of the positions that I was ready for, that I was ready to be promoted to. But you also got to remember and take into account that the reason why I'm not really pushing for promotion because I'm content in the situation I'm in. I'm working remote. My pay is not bad. I've been with this team for 4 years, so I'm very comfortable. And so me leaving to join that team, not only did I have to give up all those things, also requires relocation. And that part of it is what kind of halted me because, again, me being in this relationship, feeling like that, it just wasn't the right time. I'm not blaming the relationship for why I didn't want to do it, but it was just a culmination of things. Like, oh, I don't know what this is going to do to my relationship. Me trying to relocate, I don't know what it's going to do for me personally. Like trying to relocate. Like, am I okay with it going back into working in an office, whatever the case may be? And so ultimately, I ignored it. But what happens in these agencies is when they win, these brands, they first try to outsource filling it internally. Send out an email, hey, we just won such and such brand. These are the positions on the team. We're looking to fill them. And people in that company apply for those. And then after they go through all that and, they don't get the positions filled by people in the company, they then put them out externally for people outside of the company to apply to them. So that came and went. I ignored it. Now we're at the end of 2023 and I'm realizing like, oh, I probably should have really considered that because now I'm at a point to where I know I was ready to be promoted 6 months ago. And now 6 months have passed and I stay here just for the sense of being content, but I'm ready for this promotion. So what do I do? I'm still not able to get promoted on my team because that position is filled. So now I have to seek elsewhere. And me seeking elsewhere was me joining a new team within my company, but I'm still, in LA. So that's the end of 2023. 2024, I joined this new team. But still in the back of my mind, I'm like, damn, I should have just applied to that company just for the sake of applying, just to see, what will happen. I brought up the relocation. That company or that team within my company that I would have joined is positioned or based out of another office in another city, which I'm not going to say now because this is the city I'm moving to. But that was another reason why I was like, oh, I don't even want to consider that because I would have to relocate to somewhere else. Anyway, so we get to the beginning of 2024. I joined a new team. By the middle of 2024, I'm realizing that this is not what I want. Like, this is not interesting. I gel well with the team, but I don't feel like I'm giving my best because this is not a passion of mine. This is not something I want to do. So this is middle of 2024. By the end of 2024, I'm like, okay, another 6 months passes. I'm like, okay, I got to get out of here. I got to figure out my exit route. And so I'm not going to take you out through the entire story of, oh, I quit and whatever the case may be. But by the end of 2024, I'm realizing that like, I have to figure out where I want to go because this is not happening. And by this point, I'm out of the previous relationship that I was in. But in that previous relationship that I was in, we were having conversations around just relocating, not for job purposes, but just in general for personal reasons. We were planning on relocating. Me being in California, I never intended on being in California for as long as I was in California. I moved back to California after I graduated from St. John's in 2019, and I thought I was going to be there for a little while and potentially go back to New York. But that just never panned out. Like I lift my head up and 6 years had passed and I was still in California. So I was like, okay, we got to figure something else out. So I knew that the end of my lease was coming up and my partner knew at the end of their lease was coming up. So around that time, I was like, okay, well, what are we going to do? We weren't living together at the time. Obviously, we had 2 leases, but we spent a lot of time together. So it was like, all right, are we going to like transition to us cohabitating? We're going to go somewhere else, whatever the case may be. And so this idea of me leaving had been planted because I just wanted to get out of California. So when I had somebody who was all the same mindset, I was like, okay, well, I'm actually going to make this move. So my lease in my previous apartment ended in March, or ended in February, end of February, after my birthday. And so I'm already got my mind made up. Like I'm leaving California. Like the cost of living is just too high. I enjoy being here, but this is not somewhere I just want to be for the rest of my life. End up getting out of that relationship, and that doesn't change my mindset. Like I'm still like, my mind was already made up that I was leaving anyways. And so November. Yeah, it was November because of my grandma's birthday. So I want you to remember that that position that I would have taken within my company, but with another brand that was based in another office. Where that office is based, I have family in that city by way of my grandfather. So my grandmother's birthday came up in November, and in November we had a party for her, and I had some family members from that city, come to the birthday party. And I remember talking to one of my cousins and saying that like, oh, I think I'm about to move out there. Like I'm trying to figure out where I'm gonna go next, and that's where that's where I want to go. I somewhere in between my grandma's birthday is at the end of November. So somewhere between the end of November and my birthday, my mindset changed. And I cannot figure out what the shift was. Well, I do know partially what the shift was, but somewhere between November and February, I said I'm going to Charlotte. And I don't remember when that shift was. I do know what the shift was, but I don't know what the shift was. So I said, oh, I'm going to this city. I'm thinking about going to the city. So like, oh, well, now I'm dead set on Charlotte. But there was a shift. Um, so my grandma's birthday is November. In November, I'm now going through another job interview process with my dream brand, but this time it's directly with my dream brand. So I applied for the job. My first interview was like November. I found out I didn't get the job maybe middle of January. But because I'm going through so many interviews, I'm in a mindset of like, oh, I am probably going to get this job. Just off the strength of me feeling like I'm a strong interviewer. Like I've never interviewed for a job and have never gotten it. Granted, my first job was the Air Force, but even with that, I had to interview to be a paralegal. Not every job you have to interview for, but because I was open general and decided to be a paralegal while I was in boot camp, we had a panel interview to see if we were fit to even go into that career field. And I got that. And then every job after that I've applied for, I literally got offers for, or been hired. So I'm just like, I'm despite me not getting that job 2 years ago into 2022, I'm still very high on myself because that's the only time I've ever got denied something. And so me going through 4 or 5 interviews now directly with the brand, I'm like, oh, I'm probably going to get this. Found out I wasn't going to get the job, but I was considering one city when I was talking to my cousin on my grandma's birthday. It wasn't until maybe like December-ish where I was considering another city because this brand is based out of another city. That's not the city. I know it's kind of getting confusing. I'm saying that city and that city and that city. But again, y'all know I don't like to give up personal information and my whereabouts. If you know where I live and so on and so forth. But some shit just not people business. And I don't give up information on myself just so willy-nilly. That's just not something that I was raised to do. So City A is where my cousin is from, where that job is from, where my grandfather is from. City B is where this brand is based out of, is where their headquarters are. And then City C is Charlotte. I can say Charlotte because I'm leaving here. So around December, I'm now on my 3rd or 4th interview. I'm like, oh, I maybe need to potentially start considering moving to City B because this is like my 3rd or 4th interview. They may actually like me. I may actually be getting the job. And so now considering that, so City B has priority over City A, but City A is still top of mind. Somewhere between January and me finding out I didn't get the job that was based out of City B, and February when I went on vacation for my birthday, I decided Charlotte. Again, I don't remember what the shift was or whatever thing it was, but partially the main reason me coming to Charlotte is cost of living. I got to a point to where me being in LA, I make a good amount of money. I mean to brag about myself, but I live in LA and I live comfortably. Like I don't struggle. I'm not living check to check, but it just didn't make sense to me in the age that I am in to continue to pay so much in rent and not be able to pocket money. Like I want to start to build a foundation for my family. I want to have a savings account, a decent savings account. And I just want to continue to not only grow my career and grow on salary, but I also want to continue to grow in terms of the money that I am pocketing so that I can make investments, so that I can have a savings, so that I can just do whatever I want to do with the extra money. So for me, it was just like living in LA, living in a big city in general. It didn't make sense with the amount of money I was making because, yeah, I'm making a good amount of money, but I'm not pocketing a lot of money because it's kind of hard to pocket money and live the way I want to live. Granted, I know, people may say, oh, just do budgeting. That may be, a good source. I understand that. I don't want to budget. I make a good amount of money. I'm not crazy with the money amount of money I spend, and I just don't want to do budgeting. A lot of people may say, "Oh, well, it's just because I like to live in modern or luxury apartments." People may say, "Well, maybe downgrade." That's not what I'm going to do. I'm a homebody. I spend a lot of time at home, so it doesn't make sense for me to be somewhere where I'm not comfortable or somewhere I don't like. And also, with the amount of money I spend in rent, I get amenities like a state of the art gym. I get amenity like private security roaming the grounds at night. I get amenities like a garage. I just get so many things that comes with where I decide to spend high rent, and that's worth it for my peace of mind. For somebody who spends a lot of time at home, I want that investment to be something that I'm going to be happy and comfortable with. And so that's the reason why it's like a tug and pull to it's like, okay, well, I want to live this way, but I also want to pocket money. I'm not going to be able to do that in these big cities because this is the rent. This is what they're requiring. So sometime between January and February, I decided I'm going to the South. And my three options were Atlanta, Houston, and Charlotte. I ended up landing with Charlotte because Atlanta and Houston is just too busy for me. Like, I feel like those are the cities where everybody is going to party. Everybody I know is going to Houston every other month for a party. Everybody I know is going to Atlanta every month for partying. And those places are very heavily populated. Like, a lot of people I went to school with are now in Houston. A lot of people I went to school with are now in Atlanta. And I just don't want to be around people that I know because that just tells me that I'm not elevating myself. Maybe that's just me thinking I'm just too big for my bridges, or britches, whatever the word is. But I just don't like to be around people I know or going to school with or have known at a certain point in my life. And that to me just feels like I'm not elevating me. It's like I'm being stuck in one spot. So I ruled out Houston and Atlanta quickly. But with me looking into Houston, Atlanta, I kept seeing Charlotte come up. I remember my TikTok algorithm kept feeding me videos about, what it's like to be a young Black professional in Charlotte. This is what life is like, being Black in Charlotte, whatever the case may be. And so I just started looking into Charlotte and I was like, okay, I think that's where I'm going to go. So I started looking into Charlotte. I was satisfied with what I was seeing. And so I was like, that's where I'm going. I'm going to Charlotte. Initially, I was just going to apply to an apartment in Charlotte and move there. And that was fully my plan. I do things like that. That's just how my life goes. I do things like that very often. I had viewed an apartment virtually, very new. The building I'm living in right now. Very new. I did a virtual tour. No one lived in the apartment I would be living in. They're still feeling like the apartment had opened up maybe like 3 or 4 months prior to me moving in. So it is like brand spanking new. Looked at the little area just through Google Maps and TikToks, whatever the case may be, and I was satisfied. And so I had applied for the apartment. I was going to apply for the apartment and move in, and then it came the time for my birthday vacation. I decided where I was planning on coming to Charlotte for my birthday. Let me rewind that because a lot of these things are coming back to my mind. I was planning to come to Charlotte for my birthday. I usually try to get out of California because it always rains on my birthday. Wherever I live in California, since I was a kid, it's either hella gloomy or it rains. Majority of the time it rains. So that's why I even go on vacation every year on my birthday anyways. So this year, I was planning to come to Charlotte for my birthday. Like, I already made my plans. Like, all right, I'm going to go that weekend and go experience Charlotte, but also go look at other apartments and go look at the apartment I'm interested in as well. Somewhere out of nowhere, it was sunny and then it was snow in the forecast. And around the time there was snow in the forecast was around the time, y'all remember, earlier this year where it was snowing in Houston and Atlanta. So this was around the same time. So I was like, well, that forecast is probably right because Houston or Atlanta, at least, is not too far from Charlotte. So if it snowed there last week and it's saying that in the next 2 weeks it's going to be snowing in Charlotte, it's probably true. So I was like, I'm not going there because if I like to get away from the rain, why would I go into the snow? It just doesn't make sense. So I just kept watching the forecast, the entire time, and it didn't change. It didn't change until the day that I bought my plane ticket, ironically. So after Charlotte was out of the question, I was like, all right, well, if I'm not doing that, I'm just going to take a proper vacation. So I ended up going to Costa Rica for my birthday. I bought the ticket to Costa Rica literally the day of my birthday. I left the night of my birthday and, went to Costa Rica for the entire month. But when I was buying tickets for Costa Rica, I usually try to stay away from layovers as much as possible. But there was the most cost-efficient flight, had an 18-hour layover in Charlotte. And I was like, oh, that's perfect. Like, I can do that. Because the plane got here in the morning, early in the morning, and then it left the next morning. It was an 18-hour layover. So I was like, oh, well, and around the time I bought the ticket, the forecast had changed. It was no longer snowing. It was predicted to just be gloomy. So I'm like, oh, well, that works perfectly because not only is it not snowing, it's not raining. I don't have to stay there for an entire time. I can get in there, do what I need to do, experience it, get back on a plane, and go on vacation. So I was like, well, this is just lined up too perfectly. And that's just something that I just to seek out. So I ended up coming to Charlotte when during an 18-hour layover. I viewed this apartment and I just went out into the city and just experienced the city for those 18 hours and got some rest in my hotel room. And the next morning I was up on my way to Costa Rica. So I ended up moving to Charlotte, came to Charlotte in March. Now, with me being here, I quit my job. I previously expressed just how I felt like I could no longer take it. I felt like I wasn't giving my best in my position. I also just wasn't interested in what I was doing. And so I just had to shake something up. And that shakeup was me quitting. And I know a lot of y'all may listen and like, well, why the hell would you quit your job when you're moving to a new city? That was me taking control of my life. Like, I'm at a point, and therapy has helped me. I'm at a point in my life to where I am trying to correct behaviors that I am aware of. I'm trying to correct negative behaviors that I'm aware of. I am at a point in my life, being over 30 years old, to where if I'm aware of a negative behavior or a behavior that is detrimental to what I am planning towards my future, I have to correct that if I am aware of it. It's one thing to not be aware of behaviors that are detrimental to what you're building to, but if I'm aware of it, I gotta address that and I gotta correct it as soon as possible. And one of those behaviors that I have been correcting is just not being as stubborn. I've expressed in another episode about just cognitive dissonance, so where it's just like trying to ignore things and just going through it. That's something that I am very much, that's something that's been very prevalent in my life and something that I had to get rid of. And that decision was me getting rid of that. Being in relationships, seeing that, oh, this relationship probably not going to work out, but still having some faith, like, oh, maybe it'll turn this corner in a couple of months or 3 months, wherever the case may be. And then that just not turning out the way it want to be. And then we're breaking up. And I'm realizing like, oh, well, I knew months ago that it wasn't going to work out. Why didn't I get out then? Me being in the job and just understanding like, oh, this is not interesting anymore. This is not serving me anymore, but I'm still stick through it for the sense of security. That security being a paycheck, and me sticking through it through security is now messing up my mental friendships, seeing that like, oh, that person kind of did something wrong and something I'm not happy with, but I'm gonna just, let it play out, see how everything goes on later on down the line. The later on down the line, you get snaked. And you're like, oh, well, I had that inkling months ago. I should have made a decision then. So I'm very aware at my age now that I have that I have had that issue of sticking through things just for the sake of sticking through things. And me quitting my job was like, all right, well, now it's time to take control of this. I can no longer stick through things just for the sake of sticking through things. If it's not serving me, if I'm not happy, if it's not aligned with my vision for my future, I have to address those things head on and either fix it or get out of it. And so me quitting my job was that. It was me logging on every morning and just feeling a drag mentally and just like not really wanting to be there, but also in the position that I'm in, like I'm responsible for other people's career growth. Like I'm a manager. So I have to also ensure that these people who fresh out of college are, being fed the right information and have the correct, developmental plan or whatever the case may be. And me not being happy in my job affects what they're able to do because I don't really want to do what I'm supposed to do. So that was me taking control of that and saying, I'm not doing this no longer. Let me put in my 2 weeks. So I put in my 2 weeks, moved to Charlotte. And I moved to Charlotte under the guise of like, all right, I don't have a job anymore, but I have money saved up to move. I have money saved up to pay rent. I have money saved up to pay for whatever expenses, food, wherever the case may be, for the next 3 months. Because 3 months was my safety net. I figured that I came to Charlotte within 3 months, I should be able to find a job. Is considering, what I've done in my career, where I'm at in my career, like I've done pretty well. I should be fine with doing so. Boy, was I wrong. There's idioms, many different sayings in black families and black religious families. It's, you want to make God laugh, tell me a plan. Other people say the universe, you may have certain plans and the universe may have other plans, wherever the case may be. A lot of people tie that to manifestations, wherever the case may be. Me trying to take control of something and me trying to plan for this, I think was God laughing. Because the city I'm moving to, if y'all remember the story earlier from me talking with my cousins and where my grandfather was from, is City A. It's ironic that I had this conversation in November 2024 with my cousins and telling them that I think that, no, we can even go further. It's ironic that I had this thought in the summer of 2023 of, oh, that would be interesting, but I can't do that right now. To move to, I can't apply for that job because that job is in City A. And then a year later, November 2024, I have a conversation with my cousin and I'm like, oh, I think I'm going to move to City A. And then here I am 6-7 months later, actually moving to City A because that's where I found a job. That's why I say that, you want to make God laugh, tell him your plan. Like my plan was like, oh, those were thoughts, but my plan is to move to Charlotte because I want to start to build my foundation. I want to be able to pocket money. I want my cost of living to be low, wherever the case may be. This is where I'm going to go. And then I get to Charlotte and I have this safety net of, oh, I got 3 months. I got money saved for rent. I got money saved for groceries. I got money saved for other expenses, wherever the case may be. I'm going to thug this out for 3 months with no job. And I'm going to find a job within that time. And I've been here for Charlotte for 6 months and I have not found a job. I've been on countless amount of interviews. I put in hundreds of job applications. I cannot find a job. And what's even funnier than that is that I've been applying for jobs where the salary is lower than the position that I left. And I'm still getting denied these jobs. I'm applying for part-time jobs. I'm still getting denied these jobs. Let me say that. I knew ahead of time that if this doesn't work out, I need to start planning for something. So even before that, like around the beginning of month 3, when the money I had saved up, I was like, before I even get to the point to where I'm like, oh, that's all I got, let me start to make some other money. I went out for a part-time job. I did a part-time gig for 2 weeks and I said, this is not for me. I know something is going to work out. And I quit that job. And so I quit that job and then here we are. We got like maybe 4 weeks left of this reserve funds I got. I'm like, damn, I probably should never quit that job. So that's 3 months, 3.5 months maybe. The next 3 months following that, I've been doing DoorDash just to make some money. And DoorDash has been keeping me afloat. DoorDash has been feeding me. DoorDash has been paying my rent. Because I moved to the city with the idea of like, I don't have a job, but I'm going to figure something out. Something's going to work itself out. And it has been mentally draining to go on all these interviews, to be applying for jobs and be considered for jobs that I'm overqualified for. To be considering jobs where the salaries are lower than the job that I just left. These past 6 months have damn near been hell. And I don't know why 6 months is the number. If y'all remember from the story I told about me graduating St. John's and looking for a job, it took me 6 months from graduating St. John. Actually, it took me exactly 6 months. Now that I'm thinking about it, from the day I walked across the stage to the first day at my previous company, it was exactly 6 months. So from graduating undergrad to getting hired my first entry level position, it was 6 months. From putting in my 2 weeks notice in my previous job to finally getting hired for a new job, it was about 6 months. So I don't know why that 6 months is that sweet spot, but I don't want my experience to be negative about Charlotte, because I've enjoyed Charlotte. I love Charlotte. I love the nature of Charlotte. I just, because there's a lot, the reason I say that disclaimer is because there's a lot of people online who are transplants from other cities and are like talking down upon Charlotte. I'm not them. Like, a lot of people base their experiences in new cities based off of like the nightlife and things like that. Bro, I stopped going out at 23, 24 years old. Like, my life is not surrounded around going to clubs and going to bars and things like that. Like, those things are not fun to me. I do go to bars because I am a huge sports fan. So if I can find a good bar that serves some vegan sides, that serves chips and dips and there's some good games on, I'm gonna go experience that in a bar setting. But as far as like going to bars because that's just a part of my life and going to clubs and things like that, like, bro, I left that in the 20s. Not even just 20s, in my early 20s. My friends will tell you I stopped doing that at 24. If I go out now, we go out to a bar, it's because somebody is coming to visit me or it's a special occasion, but y'all won't find me outside. Like, y'all find me in sporting events, concerts, wherever the case may be. Like, these are the things I enjoy. This is also why I travel so much, because I get the joy out of traveling that I got out of going out when I was in my early 20s. But anyways, getting back to the subject, my experience in Charlotte, it's just been hell. The city of Charlotte in itself has been great, and I loved it. And it's unfortunate that I'm, won't stay here longer. But I never expected this to go the way it has gone. And again, hindsight is always 2020. Maybe I shouldn't have quit my job. Maybe I should have kept it for a little bit longer and figured it out with that job. But in the same stance, it's like, what I got out of that situation from leaving that job, it was so freeing, because me signing on to do something that I didn't want to do every day was taxing. It was taxing on my mental. It was taking a toll on me. And I think if you put me in that situation 20 times over, I'm going to make that same decision again. Granted, in hindsight, I can see that like that probably wasn't the right decision, but sometimes you have to weigh out, what you prioritize, or what you I won't say what you consider more, but yeah, what's more of a priority? Is it your mental or is it security? And I think a lot of times we as young professionals, especially young Black professionals, we get tied into that security a lot, because if I get rid of this, or if this is taken away from me, how am I going to get it back? And I'm going to be the first person. The reason why I be telling these stories, because I don't want somebody to go through what I'm going through. Like, it's not easy. Like, what I just gone through for the past 6 months, anybody else would have folded. And I don't blame them, because this shit is tiring. Excuse my language. I know my grandma and my mama be listening to my podcast, but this shit is tiring. It literally took a toll on me. And the only thing that really kept me sane was faith. Faith kept me sane. If I didn't have faith, I don't know how I would have pushed through all this. But this shit was eating me up. Like, getting rejection letters, getting rejection emails from jobs that I didn't even get a chance to interview for, but I'm well overqualified for. Getting, rejection emails from jobs that I went to 3 or 4 rounds of interviews for. Knowing that I just killed these interviews. That does something to you mentally when it's like week after week after week. And then there were some weeks where I wasn't even getting interviews. There were pointed times to where I would get an interview one week and then interview next week, and it'd be 2 different positions. And then there were some times where I was going 2 or 3 weeks without interviews. So now I'm out door dashing just like with no hope. Like, damn, I hope somebody reach out to me. I'd applied to 20 positions. I'd applied for 50 positions yesterday. Hopefully somebody reached out to me today. And there was 2 weeks of that. just out and about DoorDashing, just hoping, checking my emails, literally checking my emails. I'm DoorDashing and I'm checking my email every 2 minutes, hoping somebody reached out to me. Nothing happened. Nobody's reached out to me. Nobody's getting back to me. And I got a lot of stories that I don't know, maybe I'll tell it on another episode. I don't want to tell another episode because we're already 40 minutes, but there was a lot of shiesty things that was going on in this process as well. And y'all can guess the skin color of the people where the shiesty stuff was going on. But only reason why I bring that up is because, like, that is another thing. Like, I'm getting denied these jobs and whatever, call me a stalker or whatever the case may be, but I'm getting denied these jobs. And every time I get denied the job, I'm going to the company just to look at like recent hires. And majority of the time, the counterparts that were hiring those positions that I was interviewing for were YT. By no surprise, one of the jobs I went through 3 rounds of interviews for. I did the phone interview, I did the virtual interview, and then I did a panel interview in their office. I walked into their office. That office was entirely YT. I don't remember seeing a single black person in that office. And these are the people that we are competing against, and these are the people that we are up against. It's hard. People speak about code switching, and I know we joke about it, but this is why things like this is important, because you have to relate to somebody who don't relate to you. Like, I'm in the South. I'm in the deep South. And I got to relate to these YT people who probably don't have friends, don't have colleagues, have never interacted with somebody like me, a young black man from Compton. And I'm competing with people who come from the backgrounds that they come from. That's going to help them. I'm just being honest. Y'all can say that I don't have any proof of that, whatever the case may be, but I know that to be true, because every time I'm getting denied these positions, the people who are filling these positions don't look like me. They look like the people who was interviewing. Every single interview I've had have been those people. And that's just been my entire media career, which is funny because I can expedite this and, go forward. All right, I didn't get those jobs, so on and so forth. What's funny is the job I ended up applying to. So we at the 6 month mark. Now I'm telling myself, all right, at 6 months, I still don't got a job. I'm DoorDashing damn near full time. Maybe I just give it up and go back home. But before I do that, I got to try one more trick. So around the 6 month mark, I started applying for jobs in Atlanta, because Atlanta is really close to Charlotte. It's like 3.5 to 4 hours. So I'm like, if I get a job in Atlanta, it's hybrid, I can go to the office 2 times a week, because I just need to leave leave early, whatever morning I go into the office, get a hotel that night, leave from the hotel, go to work the next day. And then by the time I get off work that night, I'll come back to Charlotte for the rest of the week. And I can do that over and over again. And Atlanta is a big market. So let me start applying for jobs in there. Did the week of that. No responses. The week after that, I'm like, all right, well, I'm going home. I might as well cast a wider net and start applying for jobs in another city. The first job I applied, maybe not the first, but one of the first jobs, like the first 4 jobs I applied to, was a job I ended up getting hired at. And this was in City A. I reached out, I applied for the position in City A Thursday. The recruiter reached out to me on Tuesday. By Friday, I had 2 interviews, and by the following week, I had 3 interviews, and the week after that, I got hired. The reason why I know that this was a position for me is because this is only the second time in my career where I've been interviewed by people of color. The first time was in 2022 when I was applying for that agency job. The person who interviewed me wasn't actually on the team, but she was within the company, and she was a very, sweet lady. And she even, gave me like, hey, even if this don't work out, still, stay connected with me, connect with me on LinkedIn. If you have any questions or need any tips, or whatever the case may be for your career, I'll be happy, to provide that to you, because there's not a lot of us in this career field. And a lot of times we are not being considered for certain opportunities. And I never did reach out to her, because if y'all know me, I'm not the nigga that's reaching out to people, but I've always appreciated that, and I'll always remember her for that, because that was very important. So that was the first time I ever interviewed with a person of color. And I've been in this career field for 6 years. So that was 2022. Applied for this job. The first person I interviewed with was Latinx, someone of Latinx descent. Am I saying that wrong? Latinx person. So I'm already feeling comfortable. These are people I relate to. The community I grew up in, it was us and it was them. So I can relate to these people and I know they can relate to me. The last interview I had for this job was a black woman. And I don't want to be cocky, but y'all got to remember that I feel very confident in how I interview. And the reason why I felt like I wasn't getting these jobs I was applying for is because the relatability wasn't there. So me already knowing that I feel like I'm killing these interviews. Now I'm interviewing with a person of color and it's a black woman. I kind of like, okay, I have no choice but to kill this because I've been applying for jobs for 6 months. So I know how, even if I felt like I interviewed well, if I sucked at interviewing, I know how to correct that now because I've been through 20 interviews over the past 6 months, wherever the case may be, and haven't gotten a job. So I have a sense of things I need to correct or things that I need to tidy up on. So now that I've corrected that in terms of improving my interviewing style, now I have somebody I can relate to. When I saw this woman's face, I was so relieved. And the conversation was it just felt like I was just talking to like a older cousin. It felt like I was talking to somebody that understood me and I felt seen and I felt heard. And I knew coming out of that interview that this job was mine. And I am so happy and I'm so grateful that it turned out this way. But this goes back into my saying of like, you want to make God laugh, tell him your plans. I was literally every single job I've applied for since I've been in Charlotte, the salary has been less than what I was previously making in LA. And that's partially because of Charlotte being a smaller market, whatever the case may be. But all of them has been less than what I was previously making in LA. I applied for this job. They asked me for my salary range. I told them, let's say the salary is from $1,000 to $40,000. My range was $29,000 to $39,000. When I got offered this job, when I got offered the opportunity, the first offer they gave me was $39,000. So I was like, wait, not only, and that's not my actual salary. Because I'm not about to give y'all obviously disclose my actual salary, but I'm just giving y'all the range. So if the job range for this position or this position salary range was $1,000 to $40,000, my range was $29,000 to $39,000. The offer I got was at $39,000. And I was like, this is just meant to be. I'm going to a city that I was initially considering. The salary range is exactly what I asked for. I even had to negotiate it. They gave me the top of what I was expecting. And on top of that, I'm joining a team where I just feel comfortable. I feel like I can be myself. This was all God's plan. At the end of the day, this is what I was meant to do. You know, I have all these ideas of like, okay, well, this is how my life is going to be. I got to change this. I got to change that. In the back of my mind, I kind of lost sight of something that was placed in front of me for a reason. And I know that where I'm going, I'm supposed to be there because the main reason why I was even considering going there in the first place is because of an opportunity that I feel like is my dream job. Like I'm not getting that job at the moment, but I know eventually, whether it's 5 years, whether it's 6 years, hell, it could be next year, there's going to come some point in time to where I'm going to eventually get the position that I want. And this is not, I was previously talking about dream brand. That's just a dream brand. Like I would love to work for that brand, but the actual job that I want is based in this city. And I think that I'm placed here for a reason. I'm placed here because I think that eventually at some point in my career, that position is going to open up and I'm going to apply for it and I'm going to be ready for it. And I can't wait to come back and share that story with you all. That like, y'all remember 2 or 3 years ago, I told y'all that I was coming here because I felt like I needed to be in this place to be ready for when that position opens up. And I think that is why God placed me here. No matter me trying to go other places or me trying to make other decisions, this is why I am where I am. I deserve to be here. And I think that this is aligned with my future and how everything's going to go. So as I get out of here, I told y'all this is going to be a lengthy episode, and look, we are at damn near 50 minutes. As we get out of here, man, again, I know that this podcast, I know my demographic for this podcast are older, but for the younger people that are either entering their career right now or about to enter a career in the next year or so, I'm an open book, especially for Black people. I'm an open book, man. Anybody, you got younger cousins, younger siblings, you got a child. 'Cause I know a lot of people that listen to this podcast are so old that they got children that are like, going through college, whatever the case may be. Man, bring them to me. I can share whatever game that I can share in terms of tips and trades of just operating within a professional career, the corporate world, whatever the case may be. Give them, my trials and tribulations, because that is what's important. I was talking to one of my friends the other day, and we were speaking about just like the fact that we are like the generation that are kind of like busting through some of these doors. And I know that that is the case with me because I don't have any cousins that are in the corporate world. Not to saying that my family is not um successful or anything like that, but the family that I do have in the corporate world, they are a generation or two above me. I don't have any cousins that are like within 3 or 4 years of my age range that's operating within the corporate world. I'm the only one that I know. And I know that I'm not going to be the last, but I think it's important that we continue to share these stories because we're busting down doors. And then sometimes what happens is that we bust down doors and we don't share these things. And then the next generation is also busting down doors. But they busting down doors that they didn't really have to bust down because it had already been broken down by you. So I think that once we share this information, share this knowledge, it's easier for them to maneuver. And that's why I love this platform that I have, because I can share things like that. Again, I'm well aware of my demographic. My demographic is not young. I would love for these episodes to reach to young folks, but this is just not something that they're interested in. But again, I work in media, so I understand my demographic. I understand my target audience. My target audience are people my age and older. Actually, the majority of people who listen to this podcast are at least 7 years older than me. And so when I take that into account, I understand at that age, y'all either have a child, multiple children. Are you responsible for somebody who is at an age to where they're considering their options for the future? So I hope that y'all either share this episode or share this knowledge that y'all hearing and listen to this podcast, because that is what's most important, is that we share knowledge with each other. Gone are the days where we feel like we have to keep something to ourselves, because that's only hindering us and generations beyond us. Man, I'm so excited for this new move. I'm so excited for season 8 of the Speak on Peace podcast. Again, this is the last episode in this beautiful blue room. Another reason why I even chose this apartment, because when I was applying for apartments, I saw that they had dedicated spaces for podcast rooms. I'm like, oh, well, that's just where I gotta be. I'm bringing my podcast back next year, and they got dedicated space for podcast rooms. That's just where I gotta be. But unfortunately, it didn't work out the way I wanted to work out, and that's fine. But I say all that to say that, like, I'm happy where I'm going. I'm happy for where I'm growing to as well. I can't wait for season 8 of Speak More Peace podcast. We got more amazing stories for season 8. That's it, man. I ain't got no what to watch for this week. I'm out.